a lot of investor pessimism and skepticism surrounding the Chinese economy lately, whether it's related to a slowdown, the trade war, the government, different regulations. What do you say to those skeptics about investing in the Chinese economy at this time, as well as investing in Alibaba?
I would say is you have to look at the long term. What's happening is China has 300 million middle-class consumers, and that's the growth driver, that's the engine for growth over the next 10, 20 years. That number, according to the OECD, is going to grow to 850 million by 2030. So if you look at the Chinese economy today, it's very much driven by consumption. Retail sales growth is outgrowing GDP. And the business that we're in, e-commerce, is outgrowing retail sales. So you look at 8% retail sales. E-commerce GMV in the fourth quarter grew 21%. And Alibaba specifically outgrew total e-commerce by several percentage points last quarter. So we feel pretty good right now.
So you're not concerned about a slowdown at all? And if there is tension related to U.S. trade relations, that isn't impacting Alibaba?
Well, there's a difference between the cyclical and the secular. Okay, so there may be some cyclicality, for example, in the consumer durables, sale of cars, for example, coming down. So negative growth over the last quarter. Sale of cell phones is not very good, but what we see on the Alibaba platform is consumables, FMCG products are doing very well, and international brands are doing very well, like Nike, Procter & Gamble, LVMH, and brands like that. With regards to the trade war, I would say this: if you look at the long term, the trade deficit itself will reverse. I've talked about this 300 million middle-class consumers that will continue to buy more from all over the world. The government has made a commitment to import $30 trillion of goods and $10 trillion of services over the next 15 years.
The Chinese government.
The Chinese government, yes. It's really kind of interesting that people are focused on the tariffs, but over time, this structural issue of the trade deficit will reverse itself, and China will be buying a lot more from the rest of the world.
But the talks are going on right now, and policy is being formulated right now between these two countries. How do you see the trade war ultimately turning out?
We're always glass half full. We're in business, so we always hope for a more benign environment. So we remain optimistic that there's going to be a resolution at some point.
Now, in the meantime, though, we've seen, a kind of a backlash against Chinese companies operating in the U.S. Huawei, ZTE, Ant Financial, even in trying to make an acquisition of MoneyGram over here, was blocked due to national security reasons. Is it harder to be a Chinese businessman trying to do business in the U.S. these days, or is it harder to be a U.S. businessman trying to do business in China these days?
Well, I think there's a very symbiotic relationship between Chinese businesses and U.S. businesses doing business in each other's countries, and we're hopeful that this relationship will be maintained. I think there are some specific circumstances on some of the Chinese companies, and they will have to work through their issues with the regulators. But I think as far as Alibaba is concerned, what we're doing here in the United States is to help American farmers and small business to sell back into China, to export to China. And so, for example, we're helping the Ocean Spray cranberries and Washington State apples. All those guys that are producing fruits and farming products selling into China on our Alibaba platform. That's a business for us that we see there's a lot of potential, and we continue to execute that strategy here in the United States.
Now, according to your most recent 20F filing, it's been about 3 years since the SEC first started reviewing or looking into some accounting practices related to GMV and Singles Day. Why has that investigation been going on for so long? And do you see that as more of a Washington power play at this point, or do you think there's actually something that they will find and that will be revealed?
Well, it's been very long, so they haven't found anything. I think there's really no updates on that issue at this point.
Now, I want to ask you about artificial intelligence, a huge topic of conversation today, a huge topic of conversation in Washington this week. Who do you ultimately think will prevail in the technology related to artificial intelligence? Right now, it seems like common knowledge among analysts in the tech community that the U.S. is ahead, but everyone is very concerned about China catching up to the U.S.'s technology at this point. Where do you see that battle ultimately ending?
Well, I think it's not quite right to pit China against the United States when it comes to AI or any kind of technology. The fact of the matter is, everything is very symbiotic. So specific to AI, if you look at the applications of AI, we're applying that to agriculture, to manufacturing, to healthcare. So for example, there's just an article this morning about Chinese hospitals develop new ways using AI to detect diseases. And if the benefits of the AI can be shared globally with all the different countries, that'll be great. But right now, I think there's kind of a knee-jerk tendency to say, oh, we're competitors and parallel universes are being created. I think that's just the wrong approach. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of scientists from China that are here in the United States working on AI, American companies working, lots of American companies that are very, very good in AI that want to get into China. I think having a more symbiotic relationship and working together on AI is really the way to move forward.
Now, I have to ask about you because lately you've been building up quite a big sports portfolio. What are your plans, especially now that Jack Ma is planning on stepping down later this year? You've been, building up quite the big sports franchise in lacrosse and basketball and other areas. What are Joe Tsai's plans moving forward?
I plan to stick around at Alibaba for a while. I think Jack is moving from the executive chairman position, but taking a step back, but he'll still stay within the Alibaba partnership. The next guy up, Daniel Zhang, who's been CEO for the last 3 years, is going to take over the executive chairman role in September, taking over that from Jack. We've got a terrific management team, and this transition is a perfect example of really a sort of positive development of a very deep bench in management. I'm very, very proud of that.